Admiral Janelle, the leader of the dwarves' royal capital, commands all forces to lock cannons onto Scorpius, and he orders them all to fire. Scorpius, however, easily manages to cut through the missiles with her tail. Admiral Janelle then deploys all of their golems, and Scorpius orders her army of scorpions to intercept the attack. The Admiral then fires the main cannon, which shot out a massive beam of energy. The beam takes out every troop on the battlefield except for Scorpius, who isn't pleased at the Admiral for sacrificing his own troops. The Admiral then calls for the Scale Squad, as they're the only beings to be able to stand up to Scorpius. Someone suddenly informs him that the demons have invaded Bloodgang, much to his shock. Meanwhile, in Bloodgang, Lefesu's group observes all the demons who've invaded the city. Ego Karos recognizes the moon elemental mana and name-drops Luna as the mastermind. Ego Karos tells Lefesu that Luna is one of the 7 luminaries and governs over the moon, specializing in hidden assassinations and stirring up disturbances. Lefesu orders Ego Karos to go after Luna and capture her alive, but to not cause any unnecessary destructions or involve any innocent civilians into the matter. She then instructs Ares and Libra to take care of the rest of the demons, while Dina, Virgo, and Carcinus will accompany her to stop Scorpius. The 7 luminaries member, Luna, wanders around the city, and she recounts how both Mars and Jupiter have failed, and that there can be no more failures, as it'll also be the failure of Terra, the founder of the 7 luminaries and son of the Demon King. We flash back to the past, where Terra had always looked down on Luna for being a woman, and only a temporary member of the 7 luminaries due to them having no other options. Venus suggests to Luna that she should try showing off to Terra and grab his attention, such as taking down the mobile fortress Bloodgang. In the present, Luna is determined to prove to Terra that she is capable of things other than spying, so that he'll never look down on her again. A shadow suddenly calls out to Luna and appears beside her, and Luna seems to recognize their voice. Ego Karos appears and tells Luna that she has 2 options. The first is to surrender, and the second is to succumb mercilessly, to which he'll then proceed to cut off all 4 of her limbs and sacrifice her to Lefesu. Luna gets a flashback to her childhood with Terra, and she chooses neither of the options and engages Ego Karos in combat. Meanwhile, out in the battlefield, a bunch of Libra golems suddenly appear before Scorpius. They're revealed to be the Scale Squad deployed by Admiral Janelle, as he orders them to take down Scorpius. Scorpius figures that those Libras were mass-produced versions of Mizar's creation. However, she notes that the original one should have used her ultimate move Brachium already. She concludes that these versions are incapable of using Libra's greatest weapon, and she proceeds to easily repel all of the golems due to them not having Brachium. She tears through the Libras and discovered that they only have half of the amount of scales compared to the original. She smiles and prepares to end the battle, when one of the golems suddenly gets in front of her face and activates self-destruct mode, creating a massive explosion. Admiral Janelle recounts how they've had to sacrifice a lot, but he's relieved that they've finally managed to defeat one of the 12 heavenly stars. Scorpius, however, suddenly emerges from the rubble, still intact. Admiral Janelle is shocked and realized that she had somehow managed to instantly break the mass-produced Libra to escape the explosion. Scorpius says that the same trick won't work on her twice, and declares the battle to be over. Someone suddenly uses Escape and summons a large portal, revealing that all of the golems from earlier had actually survived the attack from the main cannon. Lefesu appears on the battlefield and takes out her snake sword and kills every single scorpion on the battlefield. Lefesu's group stands on the battlefield, ready to end the fight. Lefesu planned to use the experience from the scorpions to level up Virgo. However, she's confused when the mana/experience points from the monsters started heading towards her instead. Experience would be useless on a max level like Lefesu, and she tries shooing it away. They suddenly converge together and begin to glow, confusing Lefesu. We then flash back to the heroes' party, who are currently near the country of Svel. Sayed started to get more comfortable with fighting, as he engages a level 20 fuel in combat. Friedrich swoops in and saves him, and someone calls out to Say, asking if he's alright. He turns around and greets both Gantz and Jean, 2 unimportant side characters who had appeared in previous videos. Say recounts how after the fight Lefesu had with the Demon King, Alfie had decided to quit the party out of fear. The king, however, had arranged for better reinforcements, those being her father Gantz and the adventurers group Hawkeyes. Say explains that his party came to Svel to meet King Migres to get advice on battling Lefesu and the Demon King, along with how to increase Say's power as the hero. Say notes how everyone seems to dislike Lefesu, and that the conversation between her and the Demon King was completely brushed aside by everyone else's lies. Say, however, disagrees with everyone. He recounts how the Demon King mentioned the war being planned by the goddess, and infers that the goddess scenario is still going on. His plan is to learn more about Lefesu from Migres, as he thinks back to how his dad had become an alcoholic after making a terrible mistake, and he swears that he will not mistakenly attack an innocent person. Finally, an isekai hero that's not a complete idiot. Migres greets the hero party when they arrive, and Cruz explains how they are looking for a way to get Say to level 1000. Since Migres had reached it before at the past, they figured that he probably has a secret method he can give to the hero. Migres is curious as to why they think that there's a secret method, and Cruz says that there isn't enough mana in the world to reach level 1000 through the normal way. Say explains how leveling up would require someone to increase the amount of mana inside of them, but the needed amount will rise exponentially. One of the 7 heroes, the vampire Queen Bennett Nash, spent over 100 years killing all of the demons on a continent, but had only managed to reach level 600 before meeting Lefesu. So the fact that even humans with their short lifespans have obtained level 1000 is extremely odd. Migres answers that there is in fact a way to reach level 1000. However, he has a question for the group. He asks them what they think about the goddess who created them, and Cruz tells him that she is the absolute symbol of justice and the divine providence. Migres tells them that he will not be able to share the secret with them, since they don't understand anything, just like him back then. However, he singles out Say and tells him he wants to talk to him privately. Cruz and the others leave the room, and Migres asks him the same question. Say says that he doesn't really understand this world too much. However, he finds the goddess incredibly suspicious. Say then asks Migres if he acted on his own while during the fight with Lefesu 200 years ago. Migres tells Say that he did indeed betray Lefesu 200 years ago. However, he is unable to tell whether or not it was his own decision. Say comes to the conclusion that the goddess must be able to manipulate the minds of every living being in Midgard. Say then proceeds to ask Migres if Lefesu is an enemy. Migres admits that Lefesu is in fact not his enemy, but rather his friend. Say asks Migres for help, as he does not want to mistakenly go after the wrong person since Lefesu is not their enemy. Migres tells Say that the secret method of leveling up is in the form of an item. That item is the golden apple, which was created by Lefesu herself. We cut back over to Lefesu's perspective, where the ball of energy she was carrying earlier had transformed into a golden apple. She asks Dina what that item is, and Dina tells Lefesu that it's a golden apple that grants experience points. She tells Lefesu that this world is different from the game, and that party members won't get any experience for just being in the party. The experience points all go to the person who killed the monster, and that only 10% of the mana is actually absorbed. Lefesu realized that the average level of this world had actually always been this low, and Dina tells her that it's always been this way until a certain moment 200 years ago. That moment is during Lefesu's rule, with her ability to create the golden apple, which she used to increase the level of humanity. Dina tells Lefesu that the apple allows people to raise their level to an unattainable level, and it's definitely an annoyance to the goddess. Lefesu asks Dina if the apple is poisonous, and she tells her that it is for the sky wings, since its compressed mana has a chance to taint the wings of the person's child, so it'll be considered extremely poisonous to the sky wings since they value the purity of their wings so much. Lefesu figures that she probably can't give the apple to Virgo then, since she doesn't want to ruin her future in the white-winged community. Lefesu finally turns her attention to Scorpius, who I guess had just been standing there the whole time. Lefesu asks Scorpius if she remembers her, and Scorpius tells Lefesu that she's been thinking of her every single passing second, as she then proceeds to attack Lefesu. Lefesu dodges the attack, as Scorpius suddenly goes on this super long horny rant, which I am not going to list out. Scorpius tells Lefesu to dive into her arms and attacks Lefesu. Karkinos uses his skill Akbens and blocks the attack. He then retaliates, as his skill Akbens strikes back with a 50% increase of the amount of damage received. Lefesu explains how Karkinos specializes in defending and counterattacking. However, he is not a good matchup against Scorpius, as her poison damage bypasses his armor and can't be counterattacked. Scorpius surrounds herself with poison to counter Karkinos. However, Lefesu gets behind her and accidentally sends Scorpius flying. Lefesu is surprised at the amount of strength she had and realized that she is becoming closer with the original Lefesu. Scorpius gets up from the attack and is confused as to why Lefesu can't understand her feelings. Divine power suddenly bursts out of Scorpius, and Karkinos tells Lefesu that it's just like that one time 200 years ago with the 7 heroes. Lefesu suddenly receives a bunch of old memories of the 7 heroes receiving divine power, and then suddenly going berserk. Lefesu thought back to what the Demon King said, and realized that Scorpius is currently under the goddess' control. The goddess is also buffing Scorpius, and Lefesu finally realized how the real Lefesu lost to the 7 heroes 200 years ago. She thought back to how Scorpius had managed to reach level 900, and realized that Scorpius had been under the goddess' control for a while. Lefesu gets pissed, as Scorpius is supposed to be hers. She swears to the goddess Elevenus that she'll take back Scorpius. Lefesu charges at Scorpius, and she makes a scary face, wanting to enjoy more of this battle. Lefesu comes back to her senses and tells herself to calm down. Lefesu realized what the Demon King was talking about back then. Lefesu's power was sealed, and the current host of Lefesu is the one preventing her full power from releasing. Scorpius suddenly unleashes her true form, the Emperor Berserk Scorpion. Lefesu notes how the goddess buff is still getting stronger, and deduces that Scorpius will get stronger with every passing moment. Lefesu figures that she'll simply have to defeat Scorpius before she can surpass her, and she punches Scorpius, sending her above the clouds. Lefesu then unleashes her meteor kick, dealing critical damage to Scorpius and knocking her out. Lefesu suddenly snatches Dina and tells her that simply knocking Scorpius out isn't going to fix things, as the goddess is involved. Lefesu tells Dina that the only way to remove the goddess manipulation is through Dina herself, confusing Dina. We cut over to Libra and Ares in the city of Bloodgang, where Libra informs Ares of her suspicions towards Dina. Libra tells Ares that her mind can't be manipulated since she's a golem, and that Dina had most likely manipulated everyone else's memories. We return to Dina and Lefesu, where Lefesu reminds Dina of her thought manipulation skills, similar to that of the goddess, which means that she could attempt to dispel the effect the goddess placed on Scorpius. Dina thinks she can, and she gets to work on Scorpius. Lefesu suddenly has a realization of Dina having the same skill as the goddess. Dina claimed to be a player, however Lefesu is starting to have doubts. Lefesu then thinks back to what Parthenos had said about the goddess' special ability called Avatar, which allows her to create copies of herself that she can control. We switch over to Ego Keros, who had managed to defeat Luna of the 7 luminaries. He calls Luna a false demon, and that she could never defeat a real demon like him. Luna is confused by what he meant, and Ego Keros asked Luna if she had ever wondered why her kind never leaves a body behind when they die. Luna answers that it's because their bodies break down into mana, but Ego Keros then asks her why that is, as real demons like him all leave their bodies behind. Ego Keros is about to reveal the truth when he's suddenly interrupted by a beam of light. The culprit being the demon prince Terra, who had just saved Luna from Ego Keros' grasp. Terra tells Luna that he had told her to be careful, and that he's glad that he made it on time. Terra tells Ego Keros that he's angry at his betrayal, but he doesn't have the time for him right now. He blasts a hole in the city wall and escapes with Luna. Lefesu notices him, and Terra gets terrified at the amount of power she has despite losing half her strength. Terra tells Luna that all of the demons are currently being controlled by someone, and that his father is even collaborating with that person. Terra says that Luna is one of the few demons that he trusts, and he tells Luna to not die, as he needs her right now. Meanwhile, Dina informs Lefesu that the goddess manipulation from Scorpius has been dispelled, and that Scorpius will soon wake up. Lefesu asks Dina who that handsome guy from earlier was, and Dina tells her that he's Terra, the son of the Demon King. Lefesu is confused, since demons are supposed to have blue skin. However, Terra's skin is white, making him look more like a human. Dina tells Lefesu that Terra would definitely be a character you can go after in a dating simulator, but Lefesu is confused since she's never played one. Dina tells Lefesu that she never seems to act like a girl, and Lefesu tells her that she's actually a guy on the inside. Dina is absolutely shocked, and Lefesu tells her that her sexual urges had all disappeared when she entered this body, so she won't be feeling anything when looking at women. The mass-produced Libras suddenly show up, and they bowed down to Lefesu. They asked Lefesu to come to the royal chamber of Bloodgang, as their master is waiting for her. They tell her that their master is none other than the Smith King Mazal of the Seven Heroes, and Lefesu is shocked that he is still alive.